What's going on, everybody? It is me, Ezel, and I am sitting here next to none other than my beautiful wife.
I was supposed to say Yelsa afterwards.
Okay, we totally screwed that
Yes.
up, but guess what? We're gonna rock with it anyway. Guys, what's going on? We are back, and today we're gonna be watching a video and kind of discussing the things in the video. I'm gonna move this to the side for our viewers that are watching. Now, this video we're watching is titled "Do All Black People Think the Same?" 3 years later. So I'm guessing these are some of the same people from the previous video that was 3 years ago when they maybe did this video. And the reason that I wanted to do this, I'm having a bit of a brain fart today, so excuse me, guys. The reason I want to do this is because this podcast is literally called Your Non-Typical Black Podcast. It's called that because, as we've stated before, we, from our experience, culturally in the community, African American community, it's harder to find black people that are like-minded or have some of the same thoughts and ideas as we do. As a culture, as a whole, you have this, and I've seen other YouTubers, I've heard them speak about this, where there's like this general, I don't know, I'm gonna say flavor of a particular race or the culture. Okay, the culture. Let's just stick with the culture. And then you have, within that group, you have certain ones that don't really
fit the mold.
Okay, so we're kind of in that realm of
very much so.
Don't really fit in all the way, but at the same time, we're a part of it. But then it's not 100%. Okay, so I'm curious to find out what this video is about. Exactly what things are we talking about that they're thinking about when they say, do black people all think the same? Like, from what angle are you talking about? Are you talking about religion? Are you talking about
stereotypically how, maybe personality-wise, maybe
personality?
Stereotypical personality types.
Right. Speaking to the mic.
Stereotypical personality types that they have perpetuated in the media for many years.
Yes. And
that has, it's not just the media. It's, of course, directly rooted in different things. But
yeah, we could go back to slavery.
Yes.
We could, I was just reading an article that was saying that the concept of, matter of fact, let me glance at it really quick before we start here. The concept of, just a minute here. Where did I see it? I was just reading it, guys. It was right here. I should have highlighted it. Basically, it was saying, okay, I can't find it. I'm looking for it. Okay, so I'm just going to read an excerpt from the article. It says, even President Barack Obama said in 2004 when he was running for U.S. Senate, children can't, in quotation marks, children can't achieve unless we raise their expectations and turn off the television sets and eradicate the slander that says a black youth with a book is acting white. So something like something in that I'm losing all my vocabulary words right now. Gosh, something in the realm. There we go. Of what he's saying, because I was well read as a child. I grew up reading a lot. Really didn't get the opportunity to watch television like that. So I was reading Goosebumps. Even though some people say it doesn't count, comic books, a lot of comic books. I actually have a extensive Sonic the Hedgehog comic book collection. I read a lot. Goosebumps, Animorphs, science fiction novels, mystery books, and I think my mother said I was reading on a college level by the 6th grade. So, and it's not humble bragging. I'm just kind of painting a picture here to to show. And yes, I was bullied, I was teased for those things. There's a direct connection between knowing that I was going to probably be on the AB honor roll, and then assuming, and we had this conversation privately earlier, assuming that because maybe I do speak well, that I came from a family that could afford a better education. Well, at the time, I'm like, well, we're both in the same school, so you have the same opportunity as me. I'm getting the same education you are. But I think what it is it was rooted more so at home. It was more so having to do with both my parents being educators, maybe, and them both actually being present in my life. And I think that has something to do with it as well.
I can relate to that. I can relate to what they're saying in the form of that, in the form of how well I speak, and people treating me differently because of that. People associating that with, like you said, having a more privileged life, which I did, but I also went through a lot of hardships later on and still came out talking like this. It didn't change me at all, Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of people tend to typecast. It's funny I said typecast.
No, it can be used in this way.
To do that with Black people, and we do that amongst ourselves too. Yeah. We do. So for the person outside looking in, they'll hear a person like me speaking, they'll be like, huh, she's not your typical Black person. They may not say it out loud, but you see the facial expression change or their whole persona change. And then when I'm talking about, or when I'm speaking on Black people do it to each other, it'll be like, let's say I encounter a Black person in a restaurant, right? Or there was actually a time where I was working at a restaurant, mm-hmm. and just because of the way that I spoke, I got treated worse by Black people because they felt like I was acting better than them. And that really wasn't the case at all. In fact, I was struggling. And, that job was holding me up at that time. But they were treating me like trash just because of the way that I spoke.
Yeah. So just to keep this thing rolling, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this video. Let's see what they're talking about. And then we'll come back and we'll pause and stop and talk along the way. All right.
Really enjoy fried chicken. I understand the stereotypes about it and all that kind of stuff, but
that chicken thing, man.
The chicken.
Chicken is that's just not something that Black people enjoy. You gave me one group of people that don't like a yard bird.
All right. Hold on. So just a disclaimer, both me and my wife are vegetarian.
Yes.
Vegetarian,
Vegetarian.
Right? Okay, I did vegetarian. Was veganish vegetarian, it's a little bit of a mix, but yeah. So, but
before that, I used
to tear some chicken up. Okay? Don't get it confused. Don't get it misconstrued. I used to eat some chicken, okay? So, let's keep going. And I loved it, okay? Okay, so what they're showing for all our viewers that are listening, all our listeners, excuse me, is there's a group of Black people. They're showing in 2019 and then in 2022, and it's split screen. So you can see the same Black people in 2019 that are in 2022, split down the middle, split screen. And in each screen, in 2019, it shows how many people agreed, do you like fried chicken? And it's like a warehouse, and on the floor of the warehouse, it has agree, strongly agree, disagree. And so if, I think there was another one, but yeah. And if you agree, you stand on the side of the warehouse that says agree. If you strongly agree, then you stand there, and so forth and so on. So they're just showing like people's opinions from three years apart from each other. Okay.
Kanye West is invited to the cookout.
No, he ain't doing that. He's not doing that.
Okay. So wait. Okay, so in 2019, Kanye West is invited to the cookout.
I
It
get
looks
why they
like
all said strongly disagree back then. I get that because that was around the time that he voiced some of his political opinions, and that was pretty controversial among the black community.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. And so now in 2022, it's it's mostly disagree. Yeah. Everybody is mostly. It's still pretty much the same. There are like 2 people in strongly disagree in 2019, and 2 people in disagree in 2019, and in 2022, there's 3 people in disagree, and 1 person in strongly agree. And I forgot, I got to go back. In 2019, there was also a person for agree. Okay. So let's continue.
I told you I was leaving you this
Things have
time.
not changed. They might have got worse. Let's just be honest.
Well, yeah, last time I was agree because I was like, he's just the crazy drunk uncle. But now he's a little too disruptive. I don't want him at my cookout.
I mean, granted, he's got a lot of things he's going through. So I'm not expecting him to change anything right now. But right now, he's just still. He needs some time. Figure out life. Then come eat.
I'm doubling down. Again, he's misunderstood. People like Kanye are creatives, and he uses like creative speech.
Like, I don't think that he's so creative and that his words are being misinterpreted.
So for the people listening, the audio that you're hearing now are the people from the same people from 2019 voicing their opinions on that question. So they're showing you the contrast between back then versus now. All right.
Like, he's making very specific phrases, like black people chose to be slaves. That's completely untrue, and in my opinion, that's just unacceptable.
But I think that's people misunderstanding what he's saying. And let's be real, like nobody, including Kanye, doesn't think that like people got in line to get shackled to be a slave. This is part of the problem. The media cut off kind of like the overall like meaning of what he's trying to say. People were angry that he was a Republican or that he was voting for Trump. And what he was basically saying is, don't be a slave to like the Democratic Party. I think there's an identity politics issue in the black community. You're not allowed to think freely. And he is, to me, another member of my community. And I want him on my cookout.
Invite him over your house then for a barbecue.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop right there for a second. He said something that resonates with me. You're not allowed to think freely.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that as well.
You're not allowed to think freely.
That's really...
Like, if you don't look like what we collectively as a group of people say black should look like, you're the weirdo.
Yeah, you're the outcast.
You're the outcast. Yeah. If you have no swag, I've seen some black people, I mean, they don't have the swag factor, right? Like me personally, I grew up in theater arts. And so I learned how to emulate not just my own culture, but anybody, right? From the way a person walks, their stance, their posture, how they speak, how they, like, I do a little voice acting for my wife's animations as well. So I just learned to listen and pay attention to the cadence and the tonality of voices and how we move and how and embody all that, right? But there's some people that don't get that opportunity. They don't. It's there is no code switching, right? And sometimes we have to code switch within our own culture just to fit in with our own people.
That was the issue that I had to deal with.
Instead of realizing, what was that show we were watching where the commercial was like, there's a spectrum of behaviors within our culture. I'm jazzing up how they said it, but it was the show with Halle Berry. Halle Berry was the producer for it, and it was like the kids were in college, and I think it was the son was the son of Eddie Murphy's character.
Oh, you're talking about the Boomerang remake.
The Boomerang remake, yeah, and the commercial was like, it was just. I agree with the commercial. It was basically saying, there's no one way to be black.
Yes.
To act black. You have our black scientists, we have our black doctors, we have our black NBA guys, but no matter where we go, we have a little bit of swag, typically speaking, a little bit of that we put to it, right? That's why when Obama got in office, there was a little, you could see it. There was a little bit
Yeah,
of step in
you
there. It was
could.
like, it was presidential, but it was like, oh, I see you, right? And there was also like, when he gave the handshakes, right? And Key and Peele did those are some other brothers that are not your typical as far as,
They're hilarious.
yeah,
They
they're
really are.
super fans. But you know, we could go through and point and show you give examples. But I think if you're watching this, you should by now understand what we're saying as far as these guys don't really fit in with the general
The general idea
yeah
of what or how a black person should be.
and there's always like some invisible like rule set of if you don't match this, your blackness is like questioned.
Oh yeah, your black card's taken. Yep.
So let's continue.
Kanye West was invited.
Would you let Kanye teach your children?
I think Kanye West
That's
is
a yes or no.
not a bad person.
I ain't saying you're a bad
I'm not
person.
saying he's a bad person.
I'm gonna say this real quick. If you, why would you let? Maybe he's talking about within the confines of a institution. I mean, the four walls of an institution when he said teach your children. But it's my personal opinion that it's up to the parents to be the first teachers.
Right.
We should be the first teachers of our children, and then that's just a little small. I don't even know why I said that. Let's keep going.
Saying he's a bad
This
person
has
either.
nothing to do about him as a person.
But I wouldn't let the Grand Wizard give my children a history lesson.
What if you could get rid
Whoa, that was a serious stretch right there.
The
that
Grand
was
Wizard.
a serious stretch. Okay.
What do you have to say about that?
First of all, I don't agree at all. I don't agree the way that black people interpret the situations and how Kanye West act and everything. We like to pretend like we've gotten far in the whole mental health community, but we really have not. This man, when I see him putting out all the stuff online, and mind you, I do not know him personally. I do not know any too much about what he's dealing with mentally. But when I look at the stuff that he's putting online, I see a person that's having a mental breakdown. In my mind, I'm like, that's what that looks like. That's what we're witnessing right now. You know, other people seeing that, oh, he's being mean, he's this, he's that. And it's like, did you ever take into account his mental health? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't it said that he had bipolar disorder? What does that look like? What does a meltdown look like for them? Does it look like them yelling at other people? Does it look like them becoming belligerent or whatever else? No one's taking that into consideration. And I just, no, it doesn't give him an excuse to do that. But at the same time, if you understand that this is what comes with something like that, then I think that you would look at it from a very different point of view. And at this point in time, I think black people are looking at it from a very skewed point of view. Well, oh, he's just acting like that. He's just saying this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And this person's a bad person without really seeing the full scope of everything, you know?
Jumping to conclusions
Right.
before doing
That's
a
how
thorough
I feel
investigation and
about
background.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't take what he's dealing with and seeing it all in the media too seriously because I don't really study celebrities like that. But at the same time, I also realize that, yeah, there are people out there that have mental health issues, and this is what it looks like.
Right. And I want to stay I do want to stay on track of what we're talking about here. Black people thinking the same. Mental health is a whole nother can of
It
worms.
really is.
And it runs rampant, especially in our community, due to a lot of different things.
And us minimizing,
Minimizing our pain.
yes.
And our struggle, and that's a whole nother podcast though. So I want to let's stick to this, and let's continue to see what's going on. No, but I feel you. Snap up. Okay, let's go.
Chappelle.
Okay, so the question was, I'm gonna rewind it just a little bit.
Dave Chappelle.
Oh, is Dave Chappelle invited to the cookout? That's the question. Okay, so we have 3 people strongly agree, and you have one sister that is in the middle with this question. And this is from 2020, so this is recent.
I have loved ones and friends and family who are like part of the queer community, and I have friends who are trans, and talking to them about like the last couple specials and just sort of like his comments in general about trans people, it has kind of rubbed me the wrong way, which is like, it sucks because I really did love Chappelle's show. I loved a lot of his stand-up specials, but like over the years, it's just like, okay, well now I'm seeing it through a different lens because other people are bringing things to light that I probably wasn't thinking about when I watched it.
I'm a big Dave Chappelle. I love comedy. He was trying to navigate a very, very narrow channel. And I think he did it quite well. I mean, because he's a comedian. You know, they're there to push the boundaries of funny.
See, here's the thing. I'm sorry, I'm going on another tangent.
Okay,
sorry,
we are
guys.
listening.
But this is the thing. If it doesn't offend us, we're all for that black person. But if it does to some degree, then we're like, no, cut them out. But it's okay if they offend another group of people. Do you get what I'm saying?
I totally understand what you're saying.
And I didn't think that what Dave Chappelle did was wrong because I watched the entire special and I saw the very end and what he said.
As did I.
But I'm saying it's interesting how they're like that towards him, but like towards another black person that quote unquote offended a certain group of people, they're like, oh no, he's invited to the cookout. So it's like, oh, okay, so if it's only the person's not invited if they didn't offend you. Is that how it goes?
I don't know when we got to a point where if somebody says something that is offensive to us, we completely throw them out with the bathwater. Anything, I mean, there is a line that you cross where you can't come back from that. I mean, I'm just gonna say R. Kelly, certain things, you know, don't go touching people's kids, man. You don't do that. But there's lines you don't cross, but anything, you know, remotely close, that's not close to that area what I just mentioned. I think people now don't know how to deal with being okay with disagreeing. It's like you can't come to the cookout because you're atheist and you don't believe in God. I would tell you, come on over. Come on over. Think of it this way. Either he's right and he's going to open your eyes to his belief that there is no God, or he's going to come around to your way of thinking through hanging out with you, seeing certain things happen, and being exposed to what you believe in, and say, now I get it. But if you guys are just at each other's throat and like, I don't want to listen to you, you don't listen, no, you can't come to the cookout, no, you didn't agree with everything I agreed with, therefore you're X'd out of this conversation. What you're doing is you're putting yourself in a position where you're not going to be able to grow, because it's only when our ideas and belief systems are challenged that we actually do grow, right? It's only when somebody pushes back that we come to a new understanding, or, you know, something gets discovered in the conversation and we reflect afterwards. When you're just like, oh, well, you said this, so if we can't see the same thing from different perspectives, what are we? We're one-dimensional, and we're three-dimensional beings. Like, this is ridiculous. I don't believe certain things. I have conversations with atheists. I may have conversations with people who have different sexuality, right? I have conversations to understand where these people are coming from. And most times, I can understand where they're coming from. I get a new point of view. I'm like, I didn't think about it like that. I see how you got to this place. But then also from my life experience, I can take them down a train of thought and say, now this is how I got here. And we learn from each other. What you're asking for when you cancel people, I'm not saying cancel people, but that's not the term I want to use. When let's just say Dave Chappelle can't come to the cookout because he talked about LGBTQ. And there were a lot of people, even though if you listen to his story, it was literally about a comedian, a trans comedian that he befriended, and was, you know, it was a touching story, but to me it shows, number one, Dave was not coming from a place of malice. I think people are they're just upset with what you say. It's just kind of like
Without
even
understanding the context.
without understanding the context, right? Like even though I don't agree with this person saying the N-word, Joe Rogan recently came under fire because someone put a 2-minute clip together of him, like various clips of him saying the N-word. Do I believe he should have used it? No, I think he should have just said, act in quotation marks, the N-word. We know what you're trying to say. Just don't say it. I think that's the safest place for him to be. But he was, they came after him. Now, I've listened to Joe Rogan in the past. And many black comedians have come out and said, this guy, I don't think he's racist. I don't think he's racist. Michael J. White has come out and said, in the context of what he was talking about. Context, people, context.
I didn't even know Michael J. White came out and spoke.
Yeah, Michael J. White, because Michael J. White is MMA guy. Well, he's a martial arts guy, and so is Joe Rogan. That's their background. So he said he's one of the most similar persons to himself as when it comes to martial arts and the things they have in common from that background. So anyway, my point is that we can have these conversations with people that we do not agree with, and if we just sit down and listen instead of being triggered, don't listen to respond, but listen to understand where this person is coming from and put yourself in their shoes for a second. If you put yourself in their shoes and you get the context, how they were born, where they were born, the things they had to deal with, all these things shape our mindset and our understanding of life. You can't just run off with one person's sentence and be like, oh, well, he said, did it. Why did he say that? Why does he feel comfortable saying that? Now that you understand why he's established rapport. When I was in college, we learned if you're trying to get or you're doing a report on somebody, when you sit down with a person, you want to establish rapport so they feel comfortable talking to you. Well, the only way you can do that is to give a little bit of your information out there. Talk to each other. Share. This is what we need to do, but instead we're doing the opposite, and it's stunting our growth mentally, right? Because as we age, we're supposed to evolve. And I feel like I'm going on a tangent here, but this is our podcast.
We both went on a tangent.
We're both going on tangents. But I strongly do not agree with just chopping somebody off at the first thing that they say that you disagree with. It's wrong, and quite honestly, it's utterly stupid. Even if, outside of someone calling me the N-word, that is not of my heritage. I think that we should listen and ask more questions to understand. And Dave Chappelle and Kanye West, not enough questions have been asked. Not enough questions have been asked,
No,
okay?
Definitely
That's my
not.
point. All right, let's continue.
And at the same time, what you were saying, you got to be careful. So I agree with you on that. But after hearing Chappelle explain, you just saw when he was on stage after he did the closer.
Yeah,
was
he came back.
Yeah, after hearing, I don't think he had any malice in his heart.
I think we need to learn how to not apologize for people because of their historical importance. Just because I loved the Chappelle show doesn't mean I'm gonna stand up for the closer. Like, it's not always just a joke, because it might be just a joke to you. Right. It's not just a joke to that person who just got murdered.
And to add just a little tidbit behind what she said, if I'm not mistaken, that trans woman
was basically
she committed suicide, right?
She committed suicide because, spoiler alert for anybody who has not watched that special, but basically she came to Dave Chappelle's defense on Twitter, and a lot of the people in the LGBTQ community came for her on Twitter and said a whole bunch of stuff, and as a result, she committed suicide.
Her own people.
Her own people.
And here's Dave Chappelle sticking up for her, explaining everything, giving us context. This was not malice, folks. This was, we can't be so triggered at just the first thing. We just have to calm down, okay? Understand, be aware, I'm being triggered. Let me listen. Okay, why do you feel that way, sir? Okay, maybe I need to ask another question because it's not making sense yet. Like, before you go off the deep end. But yeah, let's listen a little bit more here.
Black people are more homophobic than other races.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So I almost say this.
Somewhat
I'm
disagree.
an avid golfer, right? So majority.
Okay, so some of the people that for the people that our listeners, pretty much everybody went towards disagree.
I think
okay?
we should hear their
And this is
responses.
2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the listeners, they can't see what we're
Okay.
looking at. So
A lot of my friends who I play golf with are white, and they say some stuff too when it comes to. So that's why I was like, I gotta come with somewhat disagree, but I only can speak for our community. We are a little rough on the LGBTQ community. So
Why do you guys think this prompt was asked?
Because there's a lot of rappers who say homophobic stuff all the time.
Yeah, and the black church, I think religion plays a big part of homophobia in like our society today. Like, but it's not just the black church.
America would be better.
any comments on that?
I think it's funny that they all stepped over to the disagree side, because I would have said somewhat agree because of.
That because they're black, they're homophobic?
No, but there are a lot of people in the community that are. I will say that.
That are homophobic
Yes.
because
Not because they're black. Definitely not. More so like what the guy said, has to do with church and other things that it's other reasons why. It's not just because of the color of the skin, but because of upbringing, because of church, because of how the world was back then, and how they said man is supposed to act like this, woman is supposed to act like this.
Right.
We're only supposed to be this way or be in this type of relationship. So I would say because of that, because the black community still holds a lot of traditionalism, I would say yes, yes and no. Yes, because they may say something that would come across that way. No, because I don't think that they intentionally mean to be that way. Although some intentionally mean to be that way.
I think see, black people are more homophobic than other races.
But at the same time, I'm not in those other races.
I think it was
no.
displayed more in the black race. I think it was the homophobia was it displayed more, meaning I think it was the homophobia was through all races, but I think black people were more vocal about it,
Yeah.
right? Because like that guy said, I remember being around my white buddies and hearing some things as well, and people would laugh and you just laugh it off, and nobody actually. It was at least where I'm from, the part of Alabama I'm originally from. They weren't really exposed, and there were some students that wound up being gay. Like they were gay, but we didn't know it, or we suspected it, but didn't think it was for sure. And those people hadn't come out the closet yet, and so, I watched them get teased. And I was getting teased as well, but it was for a completely different reason. I just didn't like seeing anybody get teased, and they didn't deserve it. They didn't do anything to deserve it other than be themselves. So I think it's this, once again, this goes back to what I said earlier. Blacks kind of, if you're not fitting the mold of what they think us collectively as a society, as a group of people are supposed to look like, you get picked on, you get teased. And being gay, definitely back then, we're talking 20 years ago, definitely back then,
Yes.
that was easy. There was no ramifications for you calling somebody sexual slurs at all. So yeah, I'm kind of a little bit both.
I
I'm
get
kind
what
of
you're saying,
disagree.
but I would say but I would still say, I guess I say slightly agree because of a lot of the things that have been said, and even in movies and stuff like that, the jokes that have been said that we may not have taken as offensively, but they may have seen as being homophobic.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course. There's a lot of movies that have not aged well that nobody said anything about.
Right.
Nobody said anything. What we were watching the other day, and I was like, whoa, that did not age well. Like nobody's posted the movie. It was a popular movie. What was that movie? Anyway, let's continue on, and then we're gonna probably wrap up a little bit here.
Other races.
Okay, so let me fast forward because that's the homophobic
America
one.
would be
All right.
better off if only black people would be better.
But it's not just the black church.
Okay, here we go.
America would be better off if only black people voted.
What? Why was
I
that
think
even a
our
question?
votes would
Right.
pretty much reflect what would be good for the outcome of America.
Even for the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so.
I'm not saying you're
These
wrong.
guys-
I'm just asking things that are just within our own community that we are.
Look, they said slightly disagree on the thing, but look what he just said. That kind of
No, his is so this guy that's speaking, he went all the way to strongly disagree.
no. I'm
Right?
saying the question before this was a homophobic one, right? And
Right.
they all sat by the slightly disagree thing, right?
Right.
But now you get to this point, and he's like, oh, you know, America would be better off if only black people voted. And the guy was like, I agree. And he was like, even with the LGBTQ community.
So he's thinking that blacks, if we were the only
Go
ones
back,
that
listen
voted,
to it again.
if we were the only ones that voted, we would not look out for our LGBT community.
Yeah, so my thing is, if you say that, then why would you stand on the slightly disagree line? Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, let's listen to see what he
Okay.
says.
We don't all agree on.
That's a good question. I
Yeah.
think the majority of us would actually be for equal rights. Black people know what it's like to be discriminated against.
I think anytime you have a homogenous group that's making decisions, you're inevitably going to have problems. So, like, I think it might start off with this idealist, way of like, yes, let's vote for things that are going to make everybody happy, but eventually, like, power just corrupts people. So, if we're the only ones voting, we're going to start to do stuff that advantages us, especially given our history here.
Black
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Proceed.
All right, next one.
people can be racist.
Black people
No.
can be racist. Okay, you got one. So for the, two people went to somewhat disagree. You got one brother went to strongly disagree, and then on the opposite side, you've got a brother that went to agree. Now, I meant to mention for all our listeners that from basically the last 3 or 4 questions they've asked have all been from 2020. So I thought they were going back and forth, but I guess what they're doing is whenever there's a question that they repeated from 2019 specifically, and they had one of the same people from back then that are answering the question today, they will show a highlight from the past to show how their answers different are different today. But anyway, yeah, all these past questions it's all present day. So you got one guy that's with agree, and basically everybody else is with either somewhat disagree or strongly disagree. So let's see what this guy has to say.
I think somebody told me about how like racism exists within this space of power, and like you have to look at it in terms of racism comes from having the power for your ideals to actually cause harm to other people or disadvantage other people. And so most of the time, a racist black person doesn't have enough power to harm somebody that they're racist against.
Are you saying there aren't black people who can hire and fire people?
No.
Well, I
don't
hire
think
and
that's what
fire
she's
people all the
I
time.
mean, what's power to you then?
Racism is a specific type of prejudice. That everyone can be
Yes.
prejudiced.
Can a Chinese person
Yes.
be racist?
Like what he was saying. I don't mean to cut this person
You-
off.
hey,
It's been
you
doing
got
this
it, you
whole
got
thing.
it, you got
But that was what I was going to say. There was a difference between being racist and prejudice. Racism is a certain type of construct that has, no offense, but power and money and politics and that type of stuff.
Nothing to be
involved,
offended by.
Versus being prejudiced. Being prejudiced is, I would say, like when you hear certain people say certain things about other races, like black people say, oh, I can't stand this person because of this or blah, blah, blah. I would consider that to be more prejudiced than actually racist because, like what the girl said, we don't have necessarily the power and the backing like that.
Okay. Well, give me just a second. I'm going to push play here.
In China, yes.
How about here?
In America, I think in America, it's a predominantly white ran society. So I think as a racial oppression
So
system,
a Chinese person cannot be racist to black people in the United States.
I think they can be prejudiced to black people. I think they can influence
Walk
individual
over.
black people. But let me say this: I look at racism as a system.
Yeah.
I think context matters in this situation here. So, because when you look at it like this, when you just can a black person be racist? Yes. Can a black person be racist in America? I don't really know. Think about it. How does a black person being racist in America benefits a black person?
That's my point.
Right.
Think about it. How, if I'm gonna be racist in America, how can I get ahead as being, I'm gonna set out to be a black racist?
But getting ahead isn't the criteria to be racist.
But racism, that's where it starts at though, bro. Like,
Yes.
it's like one of the main engines.
So, all right, so we're going to use different words. What you're basically saying is that in order to be racist, you can only be white in the United States.
So I'm just saying the impact is bigger.
Yeah.
So the judgment around what it is, none of it's right, but the impact is widely different.
And you know what, guys? I think that's a good place to stop for right now. What did you think about what he was saying?
I agree with what the people on the left were actually saying. And the interesting thing is that there's so many factors into what's going on, racism, being prejudiced, and, oh, if a certain person said this about this person and that, and there's so many things that we have to really consider. We have to consider the politics. We have to consider the capitalism. We have to consider all of that. We have to consider who has power over the majority. We have to consider that, and because this is not just an American thing, because we were talking about America, but this is not just an American thing. Right. We also had to think about it from caste systems and everything, like who is pushed to the top. And the caste systems, you see a person of a certain complexion or closest to the complexion that
That's
tends to be.
a whole nother
exactly.
podcast. A whole nother podcast.
And then no one talks about this. This is so interesting. They get mad when black people say, oh, we should stick together. We should, only marry our own kind. But they have done this in other races for many, 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 many years. Like, that has not been out of the ordinary. Like, okay, an Asian person may want their child to marry another Asian person.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? An Indian will want their child to marry another Indian, or a person of Latin American descent will want their child to marry somebody of the Latin American descent, So this is not necessarily a foreign concept. That's why I said there's just so many layers to this. There's so many layers to this, and so many people only scratch the surface of racism, racial politics. It's just, and beauty. Because the beauty community,
once again, another podcast.
That is a whole
podcast.
other story.
So I just wanted to kind of wrap this up and also mention, now that we've seen that we've watched the video, at least in part, you guys can check out the full video on Jubilee's YouTube channel.
Yes.
Do Black People Think the Same 3 years later? Spectrum. Now, at the beginning, I had a slick little monologue, and I was saying that the things that I was identifying as being different, thought-wise, had more to do with mannerism, maybe behavior. This was more, I guess, different topics. What do we think? And I wasn't certain how they, now that I've seen it, I know, but at the time, I wasn't certain what they meant. So now that I know, I think there's a connection between, there's definitely a connection. What am I talking about? How you behave, right? The things that I was pinpointing at the beginning, in connection to your particular beliefs, right? Your belief system, as far as maybe a person that is more so creative and maybe they don't talk that much, but they paint a lot and draw and color, and they're like 30 years old, but they, they don't fit in even with their age group. They may understand Kanye, right? They may vouch for Kanye because they get it, because they're, I don't know. I'm just talking more like that. So I'm connecting the dots between what I was saying and then what they're talking about, which is more their talking points have to do more on, what's the word I'm looking for?
More so topics than actual stuff that's related to what would make black people think differently.
Yeah, I think there's another way to say what I'm trying to say, but that's close enough. That's close enough. So
and also I know that I kind of went on a rant today, but my voice is cracking. But I don't want people to think that I am against anybody of any shape and form, any skin complexions, any cultural backgrounds, or anything like that. I just get very excited when talking about certain topics because I don't necessarily get to voice them that all. Whoa. I don't get to voice them that often.
I'm sorry, and we gotta do a show on dyslexia one day too, because
I don't have
that hits
that,
close to home for people in my family. But everything you said, ditto. Likewise, we push positivity and good energy. We both are energy minded when we speak to people. So if you're aware or conscious of any of that, maybe we'll do a podcast on that one day. But yeah, so there's no hate or malice here. We just want everybody on this planet to get along. Like, seriously. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to get along. And that does not mean having to bow to another group necessarily get along. I think we can all work in unison, and we can all keep our identities separate, but at the same time move forward together collectively in a prosperous direction, whether we're talking about mental health, financially, etc. It's just maybe it's romantic, maybe somebody's sitting there shaking their head saying that'll never happen. I'm not saying it will ever happen, but I'm saying that is what we long for. So there's no way we're on here trying to put down any other race, color, sexuality, etc. So for the viewers that are watching, we just want to know, leave us your comments and thoughts on this podcast. What do you guys think about today's topic? And subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to become more active on here. We put a video out, I think, last week or a few days ago. So this is the fastest we've put another video out. But we'll get a lot more consistent on this platform as we gain in subscribers. So guys, do that for us. And guess what? Thank you for coming out and hanging with us. All right? Peace.